Hi everyone. It is a second consecutive Pam Chat, and the reason I am coming to you live today is because things in the Kavanaugh hearing are happening so fast, and I feel like I need to explain some stuff to you guys. And it's really important that we get to this. So as some of you probably know, I was a criminal defense counsel for the first 3 years or 3.5 years of my legal career in the Navy. That's what I did. I was a criminal defense lawyer. And I want to put a pin or a flag in the ground that the biggest mistake that has been made to date in this Kavanaugh thing has been made by Kavanaugh himself, which is the categorical denial. Categorical denial. Now, as a criminal defense counsel, obviously the overwhelming majority of my clients that went to trial obviously pled not guilty. I mean, there were plenty that pled guilty and got plea agreements and whatever. But you know, when I actually went to contested trial, they're pleading not guilty. A plea of not guilty is not technically the same thing as a categorical denial. And one of the things that I would tell my clients about categorical denials, because quite often they would categorically deny stuff to me. And I would sit in our pre-trial preparations and say, hey, you know, the problem with the categorical denial is that it calls into question either the evidence around the circumstances or the credibility of the people making the accusation and the denial. So unless you are 100% certain that you would be viewed as more credible than the other side of the equation, then I don't suggest you do categorical denials. I suggest that you either remain silent or state that, you know, you don't recall or that there's, you know, it's not something you would do or whatever. But a categorical denial is an invitation to scrutiny of credibility. I want you to put a pin in that. A categorical denial is an invitation to the scrutiny of credibility. Not only did Kavanaugh engage in a categorical denial at the beginning of this thing when it started percolating, what was it, Saturday? But he doubled down on that categorical denial today, right? So that was his official statement today was, I categorically deny that anything like this could ever happen. And I just saw some video on Twitter about Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, specifically asking Kavanaugh about his behavior as a teenager and in high school. And he asked Kavanaugh, were you, like a Walton, a clean-cut, straight-laced guy, or were you more like Ferris Bueller? Did you bend the rules a little bit? I found the question to be really peculiar. But what was interesting was that in that particular situation, Kavanaugh did not engage in categorical denial. He prevaricated and evaded very deftly, talking about, being a football player and being into sports, but not really answering the question at all about what kind of guy was he. Now, I think that's a missed opportunity because in that circumstance, it was a softball question from a Republican. And in that circumstance, Brett Kavanaugh had the opportunity to essentially insulate himself, to get ahead of this and say, when I was in high school, like most teenagers, I experimented with alcohol and at times drank to excess as a means of dealing with the stress of going to a competitive high school and being an athlete and trying to get into top schools. Very stressful time, and periodically I would drink to excess, and I probably did some things that I wasn't super proud of in those circumstances. Had he said that, then he would have some wiggle room now. But Kavanaugh has no wiggle room, none. Which brings me to my point of the Pam Chat today. He's done. He's done. Here's why he's done. He's done because that categorical denial has now opened the question, and Susan Collins just tweeted that they will open the hearing to hear both him and Ms. Ford testify. They're going to reopen the hearing for this purpose. I want you to understand what this really looks like. There's no such thing as her testimony and his testimony and it be a he say, she say. That's not the way this is going to go down. Why? Because it never does. It never does. When somebody testifies, there's always going to be bolstering, corroborating, or attacking information. Always. Because they need that information to question the testifier. So at that point, if she testifies, it's not going to be just her. It's going to be her. It's going to be her husband. It's going to be her psychologist, her polygrapher, the person who administered a polygraph. It's going to be her contemporaneous friends. It's going to be the people from her school who knew this guy. It's going to be all of these other things, because those are now all germane to her credibility. The same is true on the other side of the fence. The other side of the fence will be, he won't just testify, right? Because now it's him, the other guy in the room with him, Mark Judge, the guys at the party, the people who were there, who could corroborate whether she was there or they were contemporaneously there at the same time, right? The 65 women who vouched for his credibility are now brought into this. By the way, teams of reporters have been trying to track those 65 women down. Of the 65, only 2 are still standing by their assertion and support of him, which calls into question how that letter came about, who engineered it, what were the women told about the purpose of the letter. So now that's all germane too. Okay, that's all relevant, right? And now we've got an open and endless and boundless examination of his behavior as a 17-year-old. Because now a question is not just what was he capable of doing at 17, what indicias were there at the time that something went sideways, but now there's what is going on with his categorical denial now, right? Is that in fact a lie? So that is what is going to happen. We're going to have an open, full-on trial within a trial of the credibility of these two people. And here's why I'm telling you it's not going to happen. Here's why it's not going to happen. Because we're 50 days away from an election. That's why it's not going to happen. And these senators that are up for re-election are now seriously concerned about losing their Senate seats. And rather than having their campaigns or some positive story or something other top of the news for the next 6 weeks, and I'm telling you, this will take 6 weeks, the next 6 weeks, every single night, all day, all social media will be harping on this conversation about an entitled, wealthy, privileged frat boy football player and his excessive drinking in high school. And I'm telling you, that is not what the GOP wants to be top line news 40 or 50 days out from an election. That ain't it. And so what's going to happen here is that they're going to talk about opening this hearing, and then they're going to start negotiating about the parameters of that hearing, and then senators from all over the spectrum are going to start talking squirrely about how uncomfortable they are with this and how they don't want this to be top line news and how this is going to hurt the prospects and the electoral prospects of the GOP senators and have ripple effects on GOP Congress members, right? They already know they're a little bit in an uphill battle here, and you're going to have a sea of really angry women all over the country now chiming up about their opinions about all of this. Now, take what happened in Alabama vis-a-vis Roy Moore and Doug Jones and the women who accused Roy Moore and the number of women who came out to vote against Roy Moore because of the indignity and the outrage they felt. Like that, and that's in the reddest part of our state, of our country. It doesn't get redder than Alabama, maybe Mississippi, but you know what I mean. Can you imagine for the next 50 days for that to be the conversation from east to west and north to south about how the GOP postures itself on issues relating to sexual assault and women as if they were good on that at all, which, by the way, they suck. So now you're going to make it a public conversation and a deep dive into the privilege that was afforded to this guy? You want that to be the top line news in the next 50 days? I assure you they will not. There's good GOP and there's bad GOP, right? And I don't mean that in a moral way. I mean good at strategy and bad at strategy. The bad at strategy GOP is reactionary, and it's very macho, and it's very male dominated, and it really believes, and is super, super entitled, and really believes that that money insulates it from everything. That's the bad GOP. The good GOP is data driven, and they're thoughtful, and they're strategic, and they understand what it takes to win races. And they understand how tight their margins are right now. And good GOP is going to sit here going, you know what, guys? This is a bad position. We cannot push this position. Even if we wanted to look like we are taking this allegation seriously and we're giving this woman her full day of having her claim heard, what we don't need is for this to play out on televisions from East Coast to West Coast 40 days before an election. There's no gain for us here. There's no win for us. And we're better off pulling Kavanaugh out of the conversation, because we're not going to lose the men who support him. That ain't going to happen, because those men have nowhere to go, right? We're going to keep them, even if we pull back that nomination. Pull back that nomination, look like the White Knights, put out a better name that somebody can galvanize around. We're not going to get them confirmed before the election, but at least we give our team something to, whatever. That's what good GOP is going to say. Bad GOP is going to say, no, no, no. I assure you, Donald Trump will start tweeting about this soon, and it will be to the detriment of his party and the senators up for re-election. I guarantee you he's going to do that, unless, of course, he's so distracted with Manafort he can't think of anything else. But this is playing exactly like I said it would, right? I told you it's going to take some time for them to come to peace with the fact that this is a real problem. They're going to try to attack Professor Ford, which is going to backfire completely. It's not going to go over like it did in the past. Now that Susan Collins has said, no, we need to hear her, now it's a credibility question, and that credibility question was percolated because of the categorical denial from Brett Kavanaugh. So now it's an issue of fact and an issue of credibility, not an issue of culpability. Right? If he had said something happened, but it wasn't intended that way, or it wasn't as bad, or I was so drunk, or whatever, that's a culpability question. But now that she categorically denied, he's deep in credibility space, at which point it becomes a full-on trial about the two of these people and the entire circumstance that created that situation in the first place. So I'm telling you, this is a no-go for GOP. It is a no-go. This is not where they want to go in order to hold on to their Senate majority. And I'm telling you, it ain't going to go down like that. That's my opinion. Now, I could be wrong, but so far I haven't been. What do you think? I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions. Does my analysis ring true to you? Does it sound logical to you? Because that's the way I'm reading these tea leaves. Senator Collins just put the nail in this thing. When she said she was willing to delay the hearing to hear from both of these people under oath, it's over, because there's no such thing as testifying under oath without preparation. There's no such thing as testifying under oath without document production and all that other stuff. There's a whole lot that goes around that, and that is a circus that the GOP wants no parts of. I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this. We'll see if I'm right. Anyway, that's it for today's Pam Chat. And as things develop, I'll keep coming back to you. Have a good day. Bye.